Video we're going to look at 5 different ways of writing loops in JavaScript. Now there could be more than 5 ways. There's definitely a lot of ways to do things, but I'm going to show you 5 ways and variation of those 5 ways, and we're going to do it with this very simple array called fruits, and it has just 3 strings, 3 elements in this array: apple, orange, and peach. So we're going to go through and see how to loop through them in JavaScript. So the first one we're going to use is the for statement. So we'll let I equal 0, and I'll explain what I'm doing in a sec. Okay, so what I'm going to do for each one of these loops is just going to print them out for the purpose of illustration, and we're going to say fruits I here. So what we should see here is apple, orange, and peach printing out, which is what's inside the array, fruits. So important thing to note about here is the use of let versus const and anything else. So make sure that you use that instead of const, because if you have const, you won't be able to iterate through the array because you're increasing the value of I. One thing to note here that's important is actually I++ is the same thing as I equals I plus 1. That's all that is. So, and we're going to go through here and we're going to kind of get the fruits and call the index. So the 0 index first is apple, the second one is orange, and the third one is peach, right? So 0, 1, 2, because we start from 0. So if you already know this, we're kind of you can skip through here, but I'm going to start with the other one, which is the while loop. The while loop is a bit different in JavaScript, and just ignore these syntax errors here. They'll kind of fix themselves as I finish writing. So with this one, you kind of have the statement like this: I smaller than fruits.length, right? And we'll comment this out because we only want to show and illustrate the loop. We have the loop declared, or the iterator looped outside or declared outside. So, and what we're going to do is loop inside of it, and we're going to do the same thing and say console.log fruits I. Very similar to the other one. And I'll fix this spacing here, and I'll refresh, and you'll see apple, orange, peach. Same exact thing. The difference is in the way it's written, right? It could be the style of how you're writing things. It could not make sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to kind of iterate one at a time. It could be used for special conditions depending on the use case, but you can a lot of the times do the exact same thing with both. Now there's a little variation of this one called the do while loop. I don't see this used very often, but it could definitely be used in this case. So I think the way it goes is kind of like this, and I haven't written one of these in a while. So you say do, and you could say, I think you declare this outside, and you do the same thing here. Yeah, and as you can see, apple, orange, peach. So the difference between this one and the last one is just in the way the statement was written. So I'll go back here and get the last one, right? And you'll see kind of the very small difference there is between them, right? Now keep in mind this one is declared as I, so we're going to have to declare it as J, just because it's in the same scope. And what you'll see here is kind of the same results here. Okay, so I think I messed up something here very quickly. Let me check what it is. Okay, no, it's good to go. Just took some time to compile, but you can see here now we have apple, orange, peach, apple, orange, peach. So this is the while, this is the do while. It's just a variation of it in the way that you write. That's it. So now we go on to the third one. What's the third way of writing a loop in JavaScript? So let me comment these out again. Now we're going to look at the for in loop. So the for in loop is kind of tricky. It behaves a little bit differently. So in this case, I'm going to say fruit in fruits, and I'm going to say console.log fruit. So if you haven't used this before, you'll see that you'll get 0, 1, 2, and not the actual apple, orange, peach. And the reason is because it actually is the index of the array and not the actual value. If you want to get the actual value, right, if we call this index instead, and it doesn't matter, this is just for purposes of illustration, I use fruits and not fruit, I will say give me back what's inside here, and you'll see that it actually gives me now the proper kind of index, and it behaves kind of like the other loops where you have to mention the index in the actual variable where the array is. So this one, it behaves like this. In Python, it doesn't. So kind of be careful. And why this is useful is because objects are a little more useful. So if you're using objects, let's take a look at objects here. An object is, let's say, const student, and we'll say the age of the student is 25, and the name, let's say, Johnny. And you'll see here, if I want to go through the student, and I have kind of like the key, and I'll print out the key of the object. You'll see here that it's going to show me the age and the name, and I'd have to do something very similar to this to kind of get the actual values of it. But this can be useful if you're only looking for the keys, for example, of an object. In an index, it might not be as useful, but sometimes it actually could be useful. Just know that it behaves differently, so be aware of that. Now, the other kind of type here we have, very similar to the last one, is the for of loop. So it's going to look like this. So in this case, and this is my favorite one, because usually I just want the values, and if I console.log fruit, look what happens. Okay, oh, got an error. Maybe it's just kind of going through it. Oh, student is not iterable, and I was actually going to cover that. So that's good that we ran into that error. So now we got the fruits, apple, orange, and peach. What happened before is I had student, and the problem is student is non-iterable. To use this, this has to be an iterable object, or else it will complain. So this is, I think, of type symbol.iterator. Now this is something to look into if you want, but this is the kind of, most kind of arrays are this kind of iterators. So if you have an array here, you're safe. In fact, most of the time you will be safe in this case. And this is kind of my favorite one to use, unless I want the index. Now, if you want the index, you can do this as well, but you have to have kind of a different syntax. Let's see if I remember it offhand. I'll do dot, I think it was dot enumerates, and I'll say index. No, and I don't think I have it right. Dot entries, I think. Yeah, there you go. So we'll print out the index and the fruit here. So we'll see what we have, and I just need to close this up, right? And now this should behave nicely. Nope, just syntax here, right? And you'll see here that now I'm printing out the index and the fruit. So you can do kind of the same thing as this kind of loop that we saw before. But I mean, if you really want the index, what's the point of using this anyways? You can use the other one. So again, you do dot entries and you put them kind of like this, and then you'll get the index as well if you really need it. And you have that capability on this kind of for of loop. Now, the last kinds I want to show you was array comprehensions. Array comprehensions, you know, they behave a little bit differently, but they're very common, and you'll see them a lot in JavaScript. So I'm not going to teach you about array comprehensions in general, or array methods as they call them, but I'll show you kind of how you can use it to loop through something. So let's see here with fruits, we use forEach. Now forEach takes a function inside of it, and each function has a fruit, and inside the fruit here we can say console.log fruit. So let's see what we get here. Okay, so let's comment this out to make things more clear, and we'll come in and we'll say apple, orange, and peach. Perfect. So again, this is a function that runs every single time, right? For every single index. So the first time is going to run for the 0 index, then 1, then 2. Here as well, you can have the index. I believe it's the second argument. Now there's a few arguments in there, but I just wanted to show you quickly in this video how to loop through. So you can get the index if you need, and in fact, you can get the whole array, I think, here if you want. So you can say array, and that will give you the entire array in case you want to use it. So you have those options, but generally speaking, it's used like this, and it accepts a function. Okay, so that's fruit, and then we go through it. Now, one thing you'll notice with this one, and you'll see .map a lot as opposed to forEach, is this one doesn't actually return anything. So let's say result, and we want to print out the result. Okay, and what we're gonna get is undefined here. So if we want to solve this problem, we can actually do const result2 equal fruits.map, and we'll do a function, and we'll go through there again and return fruit, and we'll give fruit as an argument, and that's the value of each index, and then we're going to print out fruits, or fruits2. okay, or result 2, sorry. And then what we'll see here is that we actually have the result here printed out in case we want it for something. Sometimes you just want to do some kind of manipulation. So I'll give you an example here. You want to say the type of fruit, and you could say smoothie. Let's say we turn them all into smoothies. And then here, what you'll see is it'll change, and oh, it's not working because of that. And we'll see here we have apple smoothie, orange smoothie, peach smoothie. So return back a completely different array. And sometimes that's exactly why you want to use .map, is if you want to kind of change the results of that array. But you could also just kind of like not use this and kind of just go through and say console.log fruit, and you'll get the same result. Okay, so we'll see here. So it's returning the same result because I'm not returning anything here. So the difference here is you must return something in this case, or actually you don't have to, because you're not actually using the variable. So you should be fine here. So I'll remove this just for illustration purposes again, to not get confused. Apple, orange, peach. So there you have it. There's 5 ways and different variations of writing things or loops in JavaScript. Let me know what you think, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.